In many of the conversations I have with people, I hear over and over again how blessed they are by God and how they have received so many good gifts from God. Those gifts range from good health and good relationships to good fortune. And with hardly an exception, these grateful people want to share their good fortune and give something back to the community in thanksgiving for what they have received. I'm always grateful and humbled when I have these conversations. It is true that God has given all of us many wonderful gifts. We all have gifts in a varying degree as individuals, and we all share gifts as a community. And one of the greatest gifts that we have, perhaps the greatest gift that we have, is one we hardly ever mention: the great gift of forgiveness. We all have this gift as individuals, and we share this gift as a community. God has forgiven us in Jesus Christ. And over again, we forgive one another. Our community offers us forgiveness, and now and then we have to forgive the community. Forgiveness is a gift we partake of all the time, yet it is the gift we speak about the least. And I think that's true because the whole idea of forgiveness really kind of makes us a bit uncomfortable. It makes us vulnerable, and it's a highly personal act. Offering forgiveness can make us feel good, even superior. But receiving forgiveness can really make us feel vulnerable and maybe even inferior. Well, sisters and brothers, today's gospel should change all of that for us. When Jesus tells the paralytic that his sins are forgiven, he's telling him that his entire being is healed and that he can get up and walk and be free of all affliction. Now, it's important to keep in mind here that the people of that time thought things like paralysis and blindness were punishment for sins, either the person's sins or the sins of their parents. So when Jesus tells the man his sins are forgiven, the Pharisees and everyone else knew exactly what Jesus was saying. Although we know that disease is not related to one's sinfulness, we do know that lack of forgiveness can be crippling. Sisters and brothers, it is our call to forgive one another all the time and remind one another constantly that God forgives us. Then each of us will be able to pick up our mats and go off proclaiming the glory of God. The central message of Jesus' healing ministry is that God always forgives us, and in that forgiveness, our entire being is healed. We have to pay attention to the many ways God heals us. First and foremost, God heals us through one another. When we forgive each other, when we reach out to each other, and when we welcome each other, we know that God is healing us in mind, spirit, and even in body. The forgiveness of God and the forgiveness of one another makes us healthier and happier. We must never stop offering forgiveness or seeking forgiveness. As a matter of fact, the best you and I can do as Christians and as human beings, the best we can do is forgive. I think one of the most debilitating things we can do to ourselves is hold a grudge or withhold forgiveness. When we refuse to forgive, we're unable to love, because love and forgiveness go hand in hand. Ask yourself, who do you need to forgive? Isn't it about time to let go of grudges? Isn't it time for that long overdue talk with the one who hurt you? Remember what the late Pope Emeritus Benedict said about forgiveness in the context of the sexual abuse scandal. Forgiveness does not replace justice. If someone hurt you, they must atone for their sin. We all must be held accountable. Forgiveness does not mean that all is simply forgotten. Forgiveness means that we are walking the road together of rebuilding trust, rebuilding relationships, and walking toward great love. It's never easy to receive forgiveness. You must admit that you were wrong, that you hurt someone, that you did something that you are not proud of. No one likes to be in that position, but we all find ourselves there at one time or another. Sometimes we refuse to admit that we are wrong simply because we're afraid of being embarrassed, or we are afraid that we might not be forgiven. But when we don't open ourselves up to forgiveness, we cannot love. Forgiveness takes time. It might not happen as soon as you apologize or admit that you were wrong. Forgiveness does not replace justice. You must offer penance for your sins. It might take time, so keep your heart open to forgiveness, then love will surely come our way. And finally, sisters and brothers, let's always remember, we're all in this together. I sin. You sin. We all sin. None of us are perfect. And at the same time, none of us really knows how or when someone else has been forgiven. So we should avoid being judgmental at all costs. When we are judgmental, we are simply showing that we have a puny capacity for forgiveness and love. Instead, let us always remember that all are welcome, all are forgiven by God, and that great love flows from the person who forgives and is forgiven. Praise be Jesus Christ.